Welcome to another session of the next chapter of the book of Acts. How God has been moving within our assembly, with individual lives, and the saints are being affected not only here but around the world. To another session that we're having with Brother Gabriel Florent. We feel it's a great privilege to have these brothers come, share their testimonies and what God has been doing. So today we'd like to introduce to you Gabriel Florent and have his testimony, and I'm sure it will be a blessing to you and to those that will be able to share in this next series. Brother Gabriel, welcome.
God bless you.
God bless you. I know God's been doing something very special in your life,
Yes.
in your family's life, within the church, and happy for you to be here today to share that with us. And maybe you can tell us what God's been doing for you.
Right, happy to be here. Should I start right from the beginning?
Yeah. How the Lord dealt with you and.
All right. Well, raised in like a typical message home, I'd say. And my parents, I believe the way my parents came to the message was divinely orchestrated by God, and they raised me in the admonition of the Lord and
Right.
my whole family. And so it's just been at home listening to tapes and always constantly the message playing, the prophet, and just being in the local assembly, hearing the services, growing up as a small child.
Right.
And
Having your little ups and downs.
yes, as a child having my ups and downs, but it's still, being raised in that atmosphere, still having a strong desire for God.
Right.
As just being a little boy and just wanting God and wanting it to be real to me. And so as you go along in life, there's different
Pitfalls.
influences that come your
Sure.
way, right? But I was very young. I was like 11 when I got baptized,
Okay.
and it was through a devotions that Brother John took, and he spoke on it was at a camp, and
Okay.
he spoke on how gave the demonstration of the bleach, how your life was dirty and you needed to be
Right.
under the bleach of the blood, and so that you could be identified with Christ.
How long ago?
That was in I'd say probably around 2000,
Okay.
99 maybe,
Wow.
because I think it was maybe the following year, somewhere along that, when I got baptized, and you actually baptized me.
Okay.
And so from then on, it was still, you still have your struggles when not trying to press in as much as you can as being around that age, and having a desire for God. And so going throughout elementary school in Cloverdale Bible Way, always having that good influence around teachers that love the Lord and are just constantly being there for you, being someone that you can talk to, or being people that are talking to you, whether it be through devotions or whatnot.
So you never felt distant at all from the church?
No, never felt distant from the church or from just being in the atmosphere that being in the message church brings, or being in the atmosphere of being around godly teachers and other students that love the Lord. And so it wasn't until grade 7 when we'd have to be graduating, because at that time that was the last grade of the school.
Sure.
And so we were a pretty tight-knit group of all of us students in that grade. And I remember I would be leaving, going to a different school for my first year of high school in grade 8. And everyone else was going to be going to the Langley Fundamental School. And so even then, I still had a strong desire for God. But other things were, you could kind of sense that other things were maybe almost trying to creep in. But at the same time, I knew I was going there. I wanted to still be fervent in my stand for Christ.
Right.
But as all those influences were taken away from me, all those godly influences, then you get put in the public school system, and not having that support group of
Right.
your friends being around you, and that encouragement to just keep that positive influence in your life. Then I had my older brothers as well that were going to high school, and they didn't really have an experience with the Lord, and so that was my only influence per se, like that I could only support. I was only looking up to them. And so I go to school, and then it's just a whole different world, right? There's
Totally.
public school, there's sports, and the devil throws all those little vices out to catch your eye. And so it's kind of, it was just a bombardment.
Did
but
you feel yourself sliding then?
Not at first, really. I was just kind of taken up with the whole experience of totally being in a total different environment than I was never really used to before. And so it was kind of early, probably around my first year, like December, around there is when I really started to feel like I was being negatively influenced.
Okay.
And I didn't really know anybody when first going there, and my brothers had kind of pushed me to the side, be like, make your own friends, because it's kind of hanging around their friends, hanging around them, trying to be around them. But then I started making my own friends, and then joining sports teams, and so you get connected to all sorts of different kinds of people, and start listening to music. Me and Josh, we used to skateboard a lot around the area that we're living in, and so all the different people that we're hanging out with, and then the music came. So listening to music, you're not supposed to, but you're doing it really because everybody else is doing it. And then eventually it's not just because everybody else is doing it, eventually you start enjoying it because that's how the devil works. He just slowly ensnares you. And so I started enjoying that lifestyle, being around those guys and being in sports, and all the negative influences started. It was kind of all of a sudden, like, it went from slow to just full out, like it was a colossal difference.
Wow.
And I remember just like young, like I'm only 13 years old, and all of a sudden you're just, you look back and you realize you've gone so far. And it's not like you've gone so far in the terms of you're becoming more mature or accomplished. It's you've gone so far in terms of the scars that you've already had.
Right. Yeah.
And so it's slowly but surely, like before you said things, I'd never just drink, I'd never smoke, I'd never do those things. Before you know it, started going out, partying, drinking, just at 13.
Wow.
And being an athlete still, I was like, I'd never smoke, I'd never do anything like that. And then slowly but surely started smoking and doing different stuff. And so for me, and personally, is like, I was shocked that all these things crept into my life, but at the same time, I was so young to not really think about the consequences and the scars that it would have
down the road.
Yeah. And it was kind of just like, this is the cool thing to do, whatever. I was just caught up in it.
And still coming to church.
Okay. And still just trying to keep it quiet.
Undercover.
Trying to just slip under the radar. I didn't want my parents knowing fully what they knew, that they obviously could see the change, like on outwardly, but they didn't know the full aspect of what I got myself involved in.
Right.
And so, it was.
And how long did this go on for?
This went on for up and down throughout the whole of high school, entirety of high school and after high school.
Right.
So it was kind of just
slippery slope.
And it was the little, I guess, it got ignited. The wick got ignited at a young age, and then.
Didn't God deal with you after school at the camp one time?
Yes. Throughout school, there's many camps that were very impactful, but I'd say the one that really I knew that it was different, that got a real, because I went from experience to experience.
Right.
Like, I'd go to a camp, a couple weeks down the road, I'd be at the first whatever party of the year for going into high school, but it was my senior year in grade 12, and I had actually switched schools because I was doing a different program at a different school. And then that was a winter camp that Brother Danny Steeman took. And the camp, throughout the camp, it was more so I was kind of more tuned in I can't recall exactly why, but I knew that God was speaking to me and doing something for me. And at the same time, he was doing something for my brother, Dan, and for our two best friends, Daryl and Mitch.
Okay.
And so usually you go to a camp and you're trying to sit with your buddies and you're all trying to be hard and cold, and you're looking at their reactions and you're trying to set back, but it was kind of different this camp. And after the camp, Dan and Daryl and Mitch, they end up getting baptized. And so we were kind of just rejoicing because we're like, God has done something for all of us. Like, it doesn't have to be like we're separated and we're living different lifestyles per se, but God just moved and did something for all of us that camp. And from then on, it was like we would be in the Word, reading the Word and the message, and I felt better than I'd ever felt before. I remember Brother Danny said in the service, he said, and you know exactly what you have to go home and do. And that felt like he was speaking directly at me, like felt like no one else was there, he was just talking to me. And I knew I went back home, told my friends. I had a girlfriend at the time. I told her, like, this can't continue, like I'm living a different life. And just, that was kind of like the first time I had expressed vocally what God had done for me. Like, other times people had heard and they'd come up to me and like, oh, I heard you, and they'd be like, yeah, but it was more timid, but this was more bold. Like, I just came right out and said it. And being in the different atmosphere of going to the other school that I was going to, it was just like I had no desire to do any of the things I had been doing before. And then few months, or I don't know if it might have been a year down the road, start not feeding as much, started getting cold in my experience, and then all of a sudden just back to square one. And that really shocked me. Like, I didn't know how I got there, and then started thinking back and like what actually brought me to this point. And then that was so towards the end of the grade 12 year, and then throughout that time it just went from bad to worse, just getting deeper and deeper. And then the next camp that really impacted us was, I believe, when Brother Kydri Diggs first came here.
Yeah, right.
I remember even looking back, even when I was struggling in the world and seeing stuff even in that state that God had kept me from, and looking back and being like, I know the hand of God was there. Like, every time coming back in the house late, you hear the prayers going through the house and you're convicted right away. But now at this point, it was just so cold that it didn't even bother me. Like, I knew that God would have to do something, like a miracle, a complete miracle, to really turn my life around.